and thanks for clicking into this edition of Sasquatch Encounters. I can't tell you how happy I am that this is our first opportunity to actually sit down and talk to someone face to face. So I want to introduce him right now. We're in his home, Mr. Michael Cook. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing good, Ed.
All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, what's your experience? What's your background in the Bigfoot community? And what do you guys got going on?
Well, I'm with the Kentucky Sasquatch team. I'm founder and leader of it, and we've all had experiences within the team. My own personal experience happened in 2000. Since then, I've been studying up on it, doing investigations, casting footprints, and even though I don't necessarily make myself an expert of it, I tend to know facts about it and what's real and not real.
Good, good. Now your team. I mean, how big is your team? What do you guys? You do all over the state of Kentucky, right?
We do all over the state of Kentucky. There's 6 of us. There was 8, and 2 of us dropped out due to other obligations.
Sure.
And we're stationed all around the state. In fact, we don't really see each other but once or twice a year.
Cool.
It's phone calls and checking websites and stuff like that. And we do our own investigations, go out to sites and write reports on it.
Good deal. Have you had any that you find pretty intriguing? I mean, obviously without giving out any names or anything like that. I know that a lot of people like to keep that kind of secret. Have you had any particular reports that you found very intriguing, very interesting? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the report itself.
The one that comes to mind every time is probably the coughing Bigfoot, the one with the cold.
Okay.
And he was a lady and her husband heard a howl, and halfway through the howl he would and it struck me funny, because if somebody's out there trying to do this, make a hoax out of it,
sure,
they're not going to go out there and have a raspy throat or whatever, man.
Right.
This thing is just like us. I mean, dogs get sick, cats
Sure.
get sick, we get sick, animals get sick. I mean, and I look at Bigfoot as not as a humanoid. I don't look at it like that. I look at it as a completely different species, but nevertheless, it has our traits.
Right.
Because it lives in the here and now.
Sure. So did you personally go investigate that yourself, or?
I did. And then that was in Middlesboro, Kentucky.
Middlesboro. Okay.
Yeah, and it's in Bell County, just south of Harlan County. And the lady and her husband were very nice.
Awesome.
And she kept on, and I mean, it was a casual conversation just like me and you were having, and he kept on saying, honey, tell him about the cough. and she said, oh, no, I'll wait. Now, he was making woo, and he said, no, tell him about the cough. And I said, well, what's going on with the cough? And she said, well, he thinks he had a cold, because every time he would whoop, he'd go woo.
Well, it's funny because I've heard, and I've read and I've heard and I've listened to literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reports, right? And I always liked it. I love it when there's that little bit of something strange that it's like, okay, there's no reason for that to be there,
Exactly.
So if there's no reason for that to be there, why is that there? And it piques my interest quite a bit. So that's pretty cool.
Another one that just out of the blue strikes me, one in Clay City, which is just up the road. The way the crow flies is probably 20 miles,
sure.
But the tripping Bigfoot, that's what we were officially put it on the report as, because the footprints were in a straight line, and all of a sudden there was just this big blob, and it was in mud to beat it off, and I think the thing slipped, and one of the guys that investigated with me thought, well, this is where he slid or whatever, something came out here. I said, I don't think so, because the footsteps picked back up
Right
after that. He's tripped
right.
and fallen.
It's falling down.
Yeah, and you think this creature is running through mountains and stuff like that. Of course he's going to trip and fall.
Sure.
I slide on ice when I'm out. I mean,
I got to admit that I actually did yesterday myself, or day before yesterday myself. So yeah, so it's possible. Now, you mentioned this thing tripping and falling, and I'm going to use this as kind of a segue because it's perfect. Now, would you consider, obviously, a Bigfoot being an animal? It's it's allowed to make mistakes. It's allowed to fall down, and that's kind of what happened with your own personal experience. Is that right?
It is.
So why don't we pick that up right there and let's talk about your experience now. And I want you to go back as far as you can. Tell us why you were there, what was going on, and I'm going to tell you guys the reason I went to where I did over the last few days was in part because of Michael's own encounter, and I'm going to be posting something about my findings and what I had happen pretty soon. But I'm going to let Michael go ahead set that up for us and tell us what happened.
Well, it was in fall of 2000. I was the normal high schooler, and I'd skipped school that day to go fishing because during that time of the year at the Martins Fork Lake dam, the river that runs out of it are loaded with walleye. I mean, it's prime walleye fishing. So I told Mom and Dad I was going to school and packed a fishing pole, and I went on to the river.
Been there.
Yeah. Not a care in the world. Great day, a little cool, not bad, leaves falling. Just that time of the year where it's just picture perfect. It's beautiful in that area. And us that's from Harlan and that area, that's our favorite time of the year because it's not brutally hot, it's not brutally cold, and just the colors are beautiful. So I'm fishing, and there's a pool of water just out to my left, probably about 50 to 60 feet or so away from me. For about an hour, I kept on hearing something walk over the ridge, and I played it off like an elk or maybe a deer. A bear, no, not a bear, because I didn't want it to be a bear.
Sure.
Because a bear is not gonna, I'm not gonna stick around. If it's an elk or a deer, I'm gonna stick around and watch it.
Right.
If it's a bear coming down on me, my fishing adventure's over with. And as it turns out, it was over with anyway. But probably an hour passed, and you could distinctly hear footsteps. And I'm not saying that I could hear 2 footsteps, but it was shuffling footsteps.
Sure.
So that's why deer, elk, maybe a bunch of squirrels playing. I, at that time, heard stories of Bigfoot. My grandfather was a avid Bigfoot believer, my dad, and but never did put any mind into it.
Right. Right.
And as I was fishing, I stopped and got a drink of pop, and I was just down there just admiring everything when this crashing just come down the hill. And I don't know, like you said with the Segway, I mean, if it tripped, if it lost its balance, but this big ball of fur rolled down the hill, landed in the pool of water. You know, I'm 5'8", 5'9". It'd come up to about my ear. You know, so it's a good 5-foot pool of water. Big ball of hair, automatically bear.
Sure.
I mean, I'm dropping everything. I'm getting ready to run because, you know, I don't buy into the whole, you know, stand your ground. If that bear's hungry, it don't matter if you're standing your ground or not. He's going to come get you.
The owl bear doesn't always work, right?
No. So a few seconds went by, which seemed like hours, and this thing stood up. And when it stood up, it was on 2 legs. And it was shaped man-like. Because I really don't like to use the words humanoid and man-like, ape, and all this stuff. I don't like to use those. But it was man-like. It was on 2 legs. It's bipedal. Automatically, you know, my mind is racing. What could this thing be? I'm 50 feet from it. Could throw a rock and hit it. When he stood up, he shook like a big dog. Mm-hmm. I mean, just to get some of the excess water off of him, apparently. And he's just below his chest line in the water, so 7.5, 8 foot tall. And he looks at me. I look back at him. And I say him because I never did see a definition of
Sure.
breasts or anything like that on this creature. Later on, I came to that conclusion. That wasn't what was going through my mind at the time.
Right.
What was going through my mind at the time is run,
Right.
run, run. My legs,
Sure.
come on,
Well,
work.
you know, and it's funny because you say that because, and I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, but that makes sense because your mind is like, okay, if I'm going to run, I have to know what I'm running from.
Exactly.
You know, so you're going to try to rationalize it before you react. You know, because you know what you're reacting to. So I understand it, and I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, you know, why ain't I running? Why am I not running right now? Once it shook off the hair, and where it was wet, it was more defined, because you figure dry, it's like a dog. Everything looks pretty much the same. I mean, you can't see length of hair and stuff like that on a dry dog,
Sure.
unless it's a big shaggy dog. The elbows, it had hair hanging off the elbows, kind of shorter up on the forearm. The chest was shorter. The hair coming off of Fu Manchu is what I've, came to call it. It came off of its chin, and 7, 8 inches, 9 inches long. And again, I'm 50 feet away from this thing. I could see this.
Mhm.
So, still, back in my mind, run. What is this thing? Run. You
Right.
gotta go. This is it. We gotta go. And I couldn't move. And he made a grunt. And when he looked back at me, his face. Now you see pictures of Bigfoot all the time, and about, how his skin is just so wrinkled and weathered around his cheeks and stuff, and you would think it's got a beard just like, like ours, where our beards only come down to our, around here.
Just under the cheekbones, right?
Right. The hair was up underneath. I'm not saying it was in its eyes, but it had defined bags under its eyes, But the hair started right there on the cheeks and came down. Its lips were black. The hair, dry, maybe dark reddish brown. Wet, almost black. I mean, it was just, you could see some of the sunlight coming through and hitting some of it. And that's why I say it was dark brown, reddish brown.
Mhm.
But you take that color of hair, when it's wet, it looks almost black. It's
Sure.
dark.
Sure.
And there was probably about a 5.5 embankment, and it was straight up. And this thing just casually took a step out of the water, stepped up on the embankment, up on the ridge. It got a little bit above me, and he made another sound, and it was just "Ruh!" I like, go, shoot, you gotta go,
Right.
And that's when I just left it. I ran to my car. I got in my car, and I'm thinking, this thing's behind me. What am I going to do? I'm not going to see my mom and dad again. This thing's going to take me out in the mountains and kill me and eat me. And that's what was going through a teenager's mind.
Yeah, and again, I don't mean to cut you off, but you're talking about a traumatic experience. That's a horrible thing for anybody, much less. And I hope it taught you a lesson not to skip school anymore.
It did.
Okay.
The perfect attendance for
Yeah.
the remainder. As I was sitting there in the car, I couldn't start it. It wasn't that it wouldn't start. It wasn't a horror movie. I mean, I didn't want to start it. I'm only thinking, is this thing going to show itself again? Where's it at? I'm looking around, darting around real fast, and heart's beating completely out of my chest. I'm in tears. I didn't want to believe what I'd seen.
Sure.
So, as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, bears don't walk on 2 legs. They do, but they don't walk many long distances. Its legs were too long. Its arms were too long. The hands, there were 5 fingers on the hands. And its hands started going through my mind. 5 fingers. There were 5 distinct fingers on its hand. And like I told you, the hands are what stood out to me.
Sure.
Not the whole creature. I mean, yeah, I remember it just like it's sitting right there in front of me. Its hands. I still have nightmares about its hands. Because the long fingers, the thumb, it had an opposable thumb. Man, I'm thinking, it's got an opposable thumb. What in the hell is this thing?
Sure, sure.
And then it just started, it was just like somebody dropped a brick on me. Bigfoot. No. No, it ain't Bigfoot. Is it? Is it Bigfoot? Was it Bigfoot? No. Because Bigfoots don't exist. It's a story. And I'm sitting there having this argument in my head. Yeah, it couldn't. I'm not on drugs. I'm not drunk. What did I see? And Bigfoot just kept on popping in my head. Sasquatch. The hairy man. Grandpa was senile. He believed in it. He was senile. It's not Bigfoot. But what if it is? And to be honest, Ed, 6 months down the road, I still had that argument going on in my head. I distanced myself away from people. I started reading on strange encounters on the internet. I picked up books from the library. And this wasn't what this was. This wasn't what this was. And probably a year later, I found myself
That was your first investigation.
That was my first investigation that I didn't even know I was doing. I was doing my own field investigation. I was reenacting everything that I had seen, that I knew this wasn't a crazy old man that a cow died mysteriously.
Sure.
Oh, it was Bigfoot.
Right.
This was me, that I know what I'd seen. I walked out in the water, and like I said, neck deep, just a little higher maybe. Okay, so 5'8", 5'9", makes the water about 5 foot. I tried. I looked like a fool trying to get up the bank, trying to take one step. There's no way, because the step was way higher than I could step.
Right. Right.
I walked down to the where the bank comes down a little bit, and I could get up on it. I walked over to the exact spot where it fell in. Looked up the hill. It was a straight up and down hill. And I mean, this thing went up the embankment and just casually strolled right on its way. I tried to walk it. I couldn't hardly walk, let alone take big steps and be graceful at it.
Sure.
Couldn't do it. I come down off there, and I went back to where I was fishing at. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, God, I wish this thing would make another appearance. Come back out. Let me look at you again. I've got a camera with me this time. Farther back in the back of my mind is, God, I hope this thing don't come out.
Yeah, careful what you ask for.
Yeah. I mean, behind that,
Sure.
It was, don't come out, please don't, because I haven't slept 4 hours a night for the last year. Through the years, through the last 15 years, I've been following leads to what I'd seen. And people around my area, the best sightings that happen are the ones that are never told. The ones that you fish for, the ones that you just stop on the side of the road and, hey man, you believe in Bigfoot?
Right.
You get a lot of crazy looks. You know, 1 out of 10 times though, you'll get you one that says, "Well, yeah, I do." Yeah, because my grandpa told me this, or my uncle told
Right.
me this, or I had a sighting of something I can't explain.
Sure.
And I look at that to this day. I think I've seen a Bigfoot. I know they exist. I just want the world to know they exist. I want science to recognize these creatures and protect them. I don't want to see a dead body.
Right. Right.
I don't want to go out and hunt this thing, kill it,
Sure.
put it on display. I don't want to catch it and put it on display. I don't. It's it would be impossible to catch one anyway.
Right.
I want them to be left alone. I want to observe them from a distance, because my experience with them, you've got some that are ill-tempered. They're very ill-tempered, and they want to be left alone. They don't
Sure.
want. That's why you don't see them every day.
Right.
They want to be left alone. We have mountain lions in eastern Kentucky. We have elk and bear. You name it, we got it. Just about it.
Saw a buffalo today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a buffalo in Kentucky today. So yeah.
Yeah. So
3 of them.
we don't see mountain lions every day. You see a sighting every now and then somebody says, "Oh, you're crazy. You didn't see no mountain lion." You look on the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife website, mountain lions, the eastern cougar, is extinct in Kentucky.
Right.
However, 3 months ago, they shot one and killed one in Paris, Kentucky.
Right.
So, again, I don't want to see this thing dead. I don't want to see it captured. I just want science to say, you all were right.
Sure.
We know what you've seen now. We know what you're talking about. And the sad thing about it, though, is in order for science to recognize, for the world to recognize that this thing exists, there's going to have to be a body.
I agree, and you know, and I guess I hope that when they do find a body, it's one that died of natural causes. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to be the case,
No.
because just like any other animal, dogs run and hide when they get sick. So do every animal, but you know, you figure they're going to go and they're going to hide. That's going to make it hard to find them in the first place. So then once they do die, by the time the scavengers get to them, there's nothing left. And it's unfortunate, but I that's my own personal opinion. And you know, you mentioned a little while ago, what was it? You said something anyway that really put something in my head that I wanted to touch on, and that is when I think you were talking about people having sightings, and you know the unheard sightings, the sightings that people never talk about. You know, and I think this is important, because if we as a community can't listen to each other's stories, how do we expect someone who's not in our community to come in and tell us their stories?
Right.
You know, it's not going to happen. You don't have to agree. You don't have to believe what you hear. You know, that's totally everybody's prerogative. But if you just at least listen without ridicule, and I think more people would come out with their sightings, and I think we'd have a better chance of getting some solid information to help locate the animal, get it classified, and get it protected.
Well, it's just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
it's just the untold stories. Okay, we wasn't Bigfooting. This has been 4 years ago. We wasn't Bigfooting. We were out riding ATVs, acting like a bunch of men, drinking beer, and one of us, and I never touched on the subject of Bigfoot with these guys. I never really talked about it. It's just some good friends of mine knew they didn't want to hear what I had to say about it, and we stopped for a break, and one of us went off a little bit, and we were on a strip job on a surface mine. Had been shut down, and there was mud everywhere, and it's just good ATV and good and hot. Just had rained, and our buddy that went off to use the bathroom, he come back scratching his head, and he said, guys, can y'all come over and look at this? And I said, what'd you find? Dead horse or dead elk or something? He said, no, ain't nothing dead. But there's something over here. And I said, well, what is it? I'm sitting on my ATV. I'm drinking me a beer. I'm thinking, I ain't getting off this four-wheeler for you. He said, these footprints, these tracks, I can't tell what they are. And, you know, I kind of lagged back away from everybody, and, you know, 3 or 4 of us walked over there and looked, and I was walking around, and they said, we don't know what this is. And I look up, and when I look up, I see footprints, you know, straight line with a staggered angle at them. And I'm thinking, that's big footprints. Now, who made them? Which one of you guys done this? And they're like, no, we didn't do this. And I started thinking, so I've never ever really told you all, any of you all about this. You know, that I do Bigfoot investigations. Seriously though, who done this? And they said, none of us. The tracks were, you know, 5, 6, 6.5 foot apart, straight line, had water in them, so it wasn't really plausible to cast them.
Sure. Because
the rainstorm had destroyed what prints that was actually there. You could still see a defined shape. And one particular photo that I took a photo of and keep on my phone, you can see toe prints.
This is the one you showed me, right?
Yes, the one I showed you.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, we're talking, what we say, I wear an 11 in boot.
I'm guessing, just to guess, size 11 shoe, I'm guessing this print, just to guess, 16 inches, 16 and a half.
Something like that.
Yeah. And probably a good 7 inches wide at the heel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely an interesting print, yeah.
Now, coincidentally, 6 months down the road, 2 of the guys that was with us joined the team, and they're still with us.
That's awesome.
And then two left for work reasons and family reasons.
Sure.
But we're always willing to listen.
Right.
To the sightings, because we've had our sightings, we've had our encounters, and we won't tell you that you're crazy, or, you know, I don't believe you.
Sure.
Unless it's some out of this world projecting light beams out of the eyes,
Right.
like we talked about that one night.
And again, you know, and that goes back to the same thing though. You know, and I tell people all the time, it's like, you know, I personally, and this is just my opinion, you know, I don't buy into the cloaking thing. Doesn't mean I'm right. It just means that's just my opinion. I respect people who tell me their stories. I enjoy listening to those stories just as much as I do Michael's story. But if we don't listen, you have to at least have an open mind, because nobody knows 100% for sure.
No.
You know, so Michael, okay, if somebody in Kentucky who's listening to this right now or watching this right now, if they want to get in touch with you to come and look into what they've got going on, if they have something happening, how would they reach you?
We have shut the website down temporarily due to budget cuts and all that.
Sure.
In other terms, we're poor. But you can
Now taking donations to the
yeah, GoFundMe.com, Kentucky Sasquatch Team. No, you can go on Facebook, Facebook.com/the Kentucky Sasquatch Team. You can find me, Michael Cook, Richmond, Kentucky, on Facebook. If you have anything to say, just say hi. You know, we're always willing to sit down and talk to people. Personal phone number 859-779-2274. Give me a call. You want to talk about Bigfoot? Give me your encounter. Don't hesitate. I will listen. And If it's good enough evidence, good enough encounter, I'll come out and investigate it myself. And
And you can also reach, you can contact myself or Dan, and we'll give you a website right here. Hopefully Dan can put that in.
Yeah.
We'll you can contact us right here on that website right there, and Dan and I will get the message to Michael as well. So, plenty of ways to reach him. But if you've had an encounter yourself and you live in the state of Kentucky, this is your man right here. Michael, listen, man, I appreciate you taking the time today. I've enjoyed the story. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to close out the show? Or?
no matter how crazy you think you are, if you think you have seen one of these things, tell somebody about it. Because, like we said earlier, it's the unsaid stories, the untold stories, the stories that you go home and you sit on your couch and think, I'm crazy, I didn't see that, and you put it away from you and you don't want to hear nothing about it. Those are the stories that need to be told. Those are the ones that we like to hear and investigate. So no matter if you think you're crazy or not, I don't think you're crazy. Ed don't think you're crazy.
I don't think you're crazy.
So just tell somebody about it.
That's good advice, Mike. Well, guys, listen, thanks for clicking into this show. Make sure you catch our next one. And with that, Michael, thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
We are out. Good job.